Headship is a book by Miriam Manderson which tells the story of how she became one of the 0.2% of head teachers of black African heritage within the United Kingdom.
In the book, Miriam documents her journey overcoming institutional racism, sexism and postnatal depression to rise to the very top of her profession.
Well, we're delighted to say that Miriam joins us now in the studio. Miriam, what a great thing to write a book about. I just wondered, what have been the obstacles you've had to overcome in order to become a head teacher?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Thanks for having me on this platform, Esther and Phil. I think the main one really is my own mental health in terms of thinking about being a black person and having imposter syndrome and whether you should be rising to the position of a head teacher and a position of authority, as well as challenges with competing with your peers who don't look like you, and thinking that you might not be successful in getting to a position that you're striving for. So some of those things have been there and really battling with, can I do this?
Yeah, so that is on top of, so as you say, you've got all these things niggling at the back of your mind. That's on top of what I would talk about, the social mobility journey you want to. We're talking it from hood to headship. So, you know, it was a tough council estate. Who were your role models? What could you have possibly done? What would most people have done from your estate?
Yeah, well, actually, heralding from North West London, the challenges there are peer pressure, getting involved in the wrong company, and not surviving and not even having aspirations to become something you can't see. No role models. And I would say I had loads of allies and loads of people around me, such as teachers, and obviously I became a teacher myself, who championed what I wanted to do. I wouldn't say I had a specific role model at my teenage years, but mainly when I became an older person, I think. As I grew, I looked to those. I had a very good educationalist who guided me and promoted what I wanted to do and really had faith in what I wanted to achieve.
Could you have ever gone off the rails? Could you have gone on a different way? Do you ever sort of sit back and think, blummin' heck, I'm lucky to be here because realistically my life was going that way?
Absolutely. So, definitely. I mean, there is a point in this book where I talk about, for example, being driven to a place where they potentially were selling drugs. And I mean, being involved in that environment, it's very easy to see, step back and see, my life could have panned out very differently had I not had guidance from my father and from certain figures in my life to go in a different direction.
So when did you decide, I want to become a teacher and I want to become a head teacher? But
that's really interesting. I didn't actually plan to become a head teacher. I loved education, I loved teaching, and I was quite happy making a difference with the children that I had in my remit. But I think as you go through teaching, you realise you want to make a bigger influence, you want to have a bigger impact on the young people. And it wasn't until I became a deputy head teacher, actually, that I felt that the challenges approached me were they because of my skin colour. But I also felt I wanted to do more. And I got to a point where I thought, I want to run my own school. I want to be responsible, scary as it may be, for a number of children have that impact. And I wanted to rise to that challenge. And so when I became a deputy head is when I thought, I think I could go forward and be a head of a school of my own.
So why is there such a low proportion of people from black African background as head teachers? Is it their lack of ambition? Is it because the education sector is sort of institutionally racist, as has been described in other places? What's your view as to why that figure is so low? I
think it's a culmination of things, and I think my book is a call to action for example, people who don't see others in those roles to step up and think actually they can. They can go for roles in leadership, they can become, and they have to look for the allies. But I think it's also for things like the governing bodies of schools to be very brave and determine we will go for somebody who is of colour, who doesn't represent what we're used to seeing leading our schools, and actually have faith in them and appoint somebody based on their merit and their credit and what they're capable of doing and achieving. And there are several people in this world who have the passion and the drive to lead a school to make sure the outcomes for children are what they should be.
Are you doing a shout-out as well, in a way, for black leadership? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I represent 0.2% of the African population. It's 1% if you consider black, who are leaders of schools, and I'm in the secondary area. And I think that sometimes I've had conversations with other friends, other colleagues of colour, who are afraid of stepping into that because of the fear of perhaps encountering racism and not knowing how to respond and how to navigate through those difficult challenges. And I wouldn't say I had a particularly difficult racist experience, but it's there and we can't ignore that it's there.
And so you now can be a role model to other people. Do you sort of feel that burden that your job is to now be that role model for other kids from a similar background to you, to say, look, you can do this, and this is how you do it? Do you feel a responsibility now to do that?
I do feel a responsibility, but it's a very positive responsibility. But I know the shoulders on which I stand as well, because there are others before me. So the first black head teacher passed away. She was there over 51 years ago, and the statistics haven't changed very much. But I'm standing on those shoulders. And I do feel that there's a responsibility to enable, empower and encourage others to take that step, irrespective of your background. It doesn't, predestine where you will end up.
Because, of course, many of our viewers will say, well, look, it's great what Miriam's done and achieved, but, does it really matter what colour she is? We just want the best person for the job. Does it matter how many head teachers are white and how many head teachers are black and how many head teachers are... Does it really matter? Doesn't it just matter that, well, it's the best person for the job and irrespective of how those numbers look?
I think it does. I think that's right. There will be many that will think, well, what difference does it make? And to a certain degree, I believe that too. But I also believe that there's a saying, you cannot be what you cannot see. And for some children, they need to see representation of themselves to be aspirational and feel as though it's a reality, it's not out of reach for them.
When I loved the title of the book, as soon as I saw that, I thought, we've got to have this woman on the show. Are you a battler? When I looked at that title, it said, I'm up for the fight.